What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Fairly Decent podcast. I am your host, Jason. And as you can tell by today's title, I am not going to be talking about, this whole Drake and Kendrick and J. Cole situation. This is something that I've thought about for a little bit now. And, it becomes bad journalism, and it becomes, something that is not fun to discuss anymore when so many people who really don't know what they're talking about try to discuss it and, put it out into the public. And, I respect the integrity of this podcast, and moving forward, I don't want it to get lost as one of these platforms that only talks about things that are trending, because, while I get it, talking about things that are, going on in the world, and these things that are happening in the entertainment business and within the music business are great discussions to have, amongst your friends and your peers. But, when you have a platform such as this one that reaches so many people, sometimes your opinions get lost in translation, and I find it better for me, if I don't have enough details to speak on a situation, then I'm just not going to anymore. I will gladly have this Kendrick and Drake and J. Cole discussion, amongst my friends, because I value their opinions just as much as I do. And, this internet world that we live in sometimes can get a little crazy. And, it's just not something that I want my brand to be a part of. If you guys care, Kendrick is the best rapper on planet Earth right now. So there's my stance on it. We can debate somewhere else. I'm just not going to use my platform for that. But it is a good conversation to have. And, I've had a bunch of conversations with a bunch of different people with a bunch of different opinions. And, I think it's just something for me that is better left to just talk about, maybe off the internet. Just because there's so many people talking about the same thing. I just don't want to build my brand on what everybody else is talking about. I want my brand to always be genuine. I want my brand to always be honest. I always want my brand to speak for something bigger than what's just happening on Twitter or Instagram or wherever you do your social medias. I don't want my brand to be built on what's everybody talking about for 15 minutes. And that's no discredit to, this whole Kendrick and Drake J. Cole thing that's going on. But, it is just, it's a pool of opinions, and I respect all of them. But I'm just not going to bring it here. That's just not what I want my brand to be about. And, it's especially one that I would love to have with my friends, as guests, if we ever do it as a publication. I think that would be an excellent idea. So C, if you're listening, G, if you're listening, anybody, that runs in my circle, if y'all want to sit down and have a conversation about it, let's do it. I'm just not going to do it by myself. Just like I said, because of the amount of opinions and the amount of people talking about it, it just gets lost in the translation. So that's what that is. Take it how you want it. But let's actually get into today's episode. All right, so today we're going to talk about self-motivation. I know there's a lot of people out there right now who, are kind of stuck in a job, and, life is just really hard to be motivated about. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about, how to reverse that way of thinking and, just help yourself get self-motivated, in whatever situation you're in. Right, like, so when we talk about motivation, it's just simply defined as the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. Right, so it's a pretty straightforward definition, but as everything, things can be interpreted in so many different ways. So like when we apply that to motivation, from our bosses or supervisors or, whoever, right? Like the basic version is just empowerment, right? Like, the whole method of just like get her done, right? Like this idea of getting something done with like the fewest resources and the most timely fashion, just you're empowered now, go. But feeling empowered is so much different. That self-motivation to go do something because you want to do it versus because you have to, right? Like that's the thinking that we're trying to reverse. The doing stuff because you want to, because the end result makes you feel good. The end result makes you happy, versus this idea of, having to do things. And always, as I bring on this podcast, my therapy has helped a lot with this and, kind of just studying the science, behind feeling self-motivated, for me. And again, I always remind you guys, this stuff is for me and this is what is working for me. And, again, if you can apply some of these things to your own life, that's the best case scenario, but this is not a do this or else method way of thinking, right? Like this is just what was working or is working, for me. And I'm just hoping that you guys can pull little things from it. But what's been, working for me is kind of, again, we do this a lot, but, a lot of theory and a lot of science is always kind of broken down into, these main points. So, I mean, again, just like a couple of the other self-help stuff that we've talked about, we're gonna ask ourselves 3 questions when it comes to this self-motivation way of thinking. And I'll kind of ask these 3 questions. I'll spend a very short amount of time on each one, because it's kind of one of those things that you have to, just take the questions and almost like take them to yourself and ask yourself these questions and kind of have a time to yourself. I'm not going to spend too long on each question, just be mindful of the questions and, ask yourself these questions. And, if you answer yes to these questions, you're already starting this whole self-motivation thing, So question number 1 is, can you do it? Right? Do you believe that you can do it? Do you have the knowledge, the time, and the training to do what you're attempting to do? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Can you do it? All right. And the second question is, will it work? Do you believe that the process you've set yourself up with, do you believe that that process will work for the task ahead? And then the third question, which is always the most important to me, third question is it worth it? Is the education, is the training, and the work it takes worth the end result? I would almost say ask yourself this first before you even ask yourself, can you do it and will it work? Is it worth it? We ask ourselves this question a lot. Last podcast I was talking about mindful thinking and, processing information before you, give these things that life throws at us a reaction. And a big question in that way of thinking is it worth it? We ask ourselves a lot in this life. So yeah, the third question is it worth it? In answering yes to all 3 of these questions, obviously you've already kind of started to motivate yourself. You feel confident in what you've learned, the training, and you're ready to apply it and see the results. That's kind of the first step in this whole self-motivation thing. The end result has to come last because you have to, what we're going to talk about next is really important in this whole process, because another big thing in this whole self-motivated way of thinking, is choice. Put yourself in a position to be in control of your life. It really goes back to, the corny old saying, right? Like, you never work a day when you love what you do, but it's so true and it's so impactful, not only on your mental health, but your motivation to keep going every single day, wanting to get better even when you're at your best. I think it's really important to set yourself up in life, to have a choice and not being controlled. And, me and my therapist talk a lot about, just ways of thinking. We do a lot of talking about, reversing some of the thinking, because with addiction and with, depression and anxiety, the hardest part, I mean, obviously it takes a physical toll on your body, but, the hardest part is always going to be the mental, mentality behind it, right? Like, you have to reverse your way of thinking if you really want true change to come in your life. Nothing is going to change if you keep thinking and doing the same thing. I know that's like the most obvious thing ever, and you probably hear it all the time, but it is just so true. Like, if you want to see change in your life, you most definitely first and foremost have to change your way of thinking. So one of the things I was taught, this is something that I had to be taught. I didn't just learn on my own. We have to stop looking at things we do in our lives as just trying to avoid failure. Like this idea that we have to work so hard so that we aren't a failure. That comes with such like negative reinforcement and feeling trapped in this life. So if you can reverse your way of thinking to like, not walk into a class or walk into your job just trying not to fail, so much weight is going to be lifted off your shoulders. If you go in there knowing that you're at your best, knowing that you can do your best, just putting the right foot forward instead of, like I said, going into life just trying not to fail. I think that way of thinking is holding a lot of us back. Just the idea of, we're always taught to not be a failure. Don't be a failure, but we're never really taught to, be the best at something. We've always just kind of gone into life just trying to keep our head above water, and we as humans have to reverse that way of thinking. We can no longer just survive. And I know that sounds easier said than done, and these things don't happen overnight. That's just the biggest part that people fail to understand is, you're in a shitty situation right now. If it doesn't change tomorrow, then I'm just going to be in a shitty situation again. No, it has to start now. Reverse the thinking now that tomorrow, and not even tomorrow, today is the day that I'm taking control of my life, my way of thinking, and the energy that I put into the universe. In all of these podcast episodes, you could almost, combine them all and make like a 5-hour episode, but they all coincide with the same positive ways of thinking, being mindful, being self-motivated, changing your way of thinking. It's just all about how you see it. This whole thing is your paradigm. It's how you communicate with others. It's how you communicate with yourself. Like I said, we just talked about mindfulness, taking control of your thinking and applying it to your life, not just keeping it inside your head, but use the way of thinking in every single thing you do every single day. Know what you're worth. Use your mind to create the change that you want to see. I promise you, the mind is the most powerful thing that each one of us possesses. And, just reverse your way of thinking. If you're in a shitty spot, if you don't like, the way you look, if you don't like something about yourself, take a second and, spend some time on yourself. I can't stress how important it is to, it's easy to say to just pick yourself up, but you really have to spend the time, on yourself in order to really understand what I'm talking about. Guys, we have to change our way of thinking. Like I said, this is your paradigm. It's all about how you see it. So I'm going to leave y'all with that. This might be one of those ones that you might have to listen to twice, to kind of fully grasp what I'm saying. But, thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for coming back this week. Sorry about the Drake Kendrick thing. It is what it is, y'all. If I can get a group together, we will discuss it, but it's just not something that I want to do, by myself. I thought this topic was much more important and much more on brand, for what I have going on right now, because I'm really trying to, help people who are in a place of negativity and depression and going through these things and letting y'all know that you're not alone. There are plenty of people who are just in the exact same spot you are. And it really is just all about how you see it. It's all about your way of thinking. It's all about what you put into the universe. It's all about your mindset. So thank y'all for coming back this week. I'll see y'all again next week. Make sure y'all go like, comment, subscribe. There's still a shitload of you who are not subscribed to this podcast and you listen to it every single week. I don't understand it. So make sure you guys go subscribe. Thank y'all again for coming back this week, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.